Hello, everyone, and we are your first group to present. And our article that we have to present is How Teachers Experience Principal Leadership, the Roles of Professional Community, Trust, Efficacy, and Shared Responsibility. This was written by Kyla L. Wallstrom and Karen Seashore Lewis. This is a quantitative study, and your presenters are Jonathan Kabir, who will be presenting the purpose in the literature review with some emphasis of Chapter 3. Myself, Jessica Bailey, I will be presenting the summary findings and emphasis on Chapter 3 as well. And we are going to end with Alicia Farley, who will be doing the conclusion as well as some emphasis with Chapter 3.
Thank you, Jessica. Good evening. My name is Jonathan Kabir. I will be discussing the purpose and the summary of the literature review for our article, How Teachers Experience Principal Leadership. The purpose of this article was a study of a myriad of factors that often exist in principal-teacher interaction and teacher-teacher relationships to determine how they correlate with teacher instructional practices. The literature review focused on 4 to 5 variables that may or may not contribute to the school's climate and culture. Some of these variables include shared leadership, which can be described as a teacher influence and participation in school-wide decisions. Trust and study indicates that trust is a significant predictor for risk-taking behavior. Efficacy is the ability to produce desired or intended results. The researchers concentrated on the relationship between collective efficacy and student achievement. A professional community is comprised of shared values, support, a common focus on student learning, and collaborative work. Teachers adopt pedagogical approaches that enhances students' learning opportunities. In summary, the literature review suggests that leadership practices that share power are credited with creating greater motivation, increased trust and risk-taking, and building a sense of community and efficacy amongst its members. The following slide demonstrates the framework for the analysis carried out in this article. This framework guides us in our examination of how teachers experience the leadership effects of principal and it relates to instruction. The principal-teacher relationship are indicated by trust and shared leadership, while the teacher-teacher relationship are indicated by professional learning communities and collective responsibility. We will now direct our attention to Jessica, who will discuss the summary of findings. Jessica.
Hello, everyone. The summary of findings. The investigation was stimulated by 3 variables. First was principal leadership. Second, teacher-teacher relationship. And the third was individual sense of efficacy. Principal leadership. The findings indicate the efforts of principal leadership on instructions are weak in the areas of standard contemporary practice and flexible groupings. It will also say that administrators should expand the decision-making process to include non-administrators in the school setting, which they feel would be more effective in schools. In different levels of education, different levels of behaviors may be more important in one setting than another. You have the principal-teacher trust, which is more important in middle schools when the dependent variable is focused on instruction. And we also have the shared leadership, which is more important in high schools. In teacher-teacher relationships, the 3 instructional practice variables that were studied showed that professional developments add a great enhancement. Not all teacher behaviors have the same effect on instruction. The 3 variables which show that would be the reflective dialogue, focused instruction, and deprivalized practice, and these are all what you can find with professional developments. Reflective dialogue. Teachers have opportunities to discuss practices with other teachers about standard contemporary practice. We have the focused instruction, when the teachers agree on effective pedagogy. There are questions about how to eliminate activities that could distract the students from concentrating. And the deprivalized practice, this gives teachers the opportunity to see how other teachers use flexible grouping. Within the individual characteristics in instruction, the characteristic of an individual with the expectation of race have an impact on instructional practice. When the context includes the expectation on the teacher, it is paramount on the confidential knowledge. Standard contemporary practice are familiar to all teachers, and gender roles and experiences requires more classroom observation. We're going to go ahead and go back to Jonathan to begin with our chapter 3.
As a group, we do believe that our researchers, Wallstrom and Lewis, were participatory action researchers where multiple parties or stakeholders with an interest in the research topic and project must work together as a research team in conducting the action research study. As a reflective practitioners, we have to be willing to become lifelong learners. The action research cycle allows you to enter at any point and repeat as often as you like, observe, reflect, and plan. Thank you.
In this slide, next slide. Chapter 3 continue the action science. Basically, I can add that with chapter 3, which is titled "How to Review Literature and Develop Research Questions." Basically, you have to make sure that you have a problem that you're researching. Once you have the potential research, you have to make sure that it's identified, and you conduct a comprehensive literature search, which was this article also had a comprehensive literature search. You also have to have a hypothesis, which is what Alicia is going to state next.
When we're talking about the hypothesis, which is a prediction about a relationship between the variables, you will hear when I'm discussing the conclusion, the authors, Wallstrom and Lewis, they will make a hypothesis pertaining to the study and the actual findings. Okay, now I'm going to discuss the conclusion of this article. And let me begin with the article had some limitations. There were 3 limitations. The first limitations were that surveys are only a proximate measure of our key dependent variable, which is instructional practice. The second limitation was actual principal behaviors were not measured, but only teachers' perceptions of how their principals behave. And then the third limitation was the article was limited to the analysis of individual teacher responses. The conclusion section of this article, it discussed 3 variables within this study, and those variables were trust, shared leadership, and professional community. I will begin with discussing trust, and this is where I was talking about the hypothesis that was formed by Wallstrom and Lewis. They pretty much said that when it came to trust, it would be an important feature of school improvement and student achievement in all of the schools, which was elementary, middle, and high school. However, after the study was done, the findings said that trust was less important than what was originally anticipated. It was a significant predictor in only the regression of focused instruction on the middle school teacher sample only. Lewis and Wallstrom's reactions to this was that they were very surprised due to the fact that the measure of trust including items that measure the principal's role in providing both direct and indirect support for instruction. Trust in the principal's instructional support seems to reflect a passive rather than an active form of leadership. Work on trust implies creating trust among teachers, which happens within professional communities, may be more significant in stimulating changes in practice than does having a trusting relationship with the principal. The next variable that I will be discussing is shared leadership. Shared leadership emerges as somewhat more important in determining instructional practice. Decision making should be shared between the principal and the teachers. It creates the legitimacy for collective decisions about instructional priorities. It also reinforces norms of professional community, binding teachers together in the strategic decision that teachers face when they design and adjust their classroom practice. And what the study found was that when the power differential between principals and teachers is lessened, instruction is positively affected. Wallstrom and Lewis findings suggest that when teachers are involved in making decisions that affect them, they tend to strengthen or deepen their instructional practice. When instructional leadership is shared among the teachers and with the principal, the influence of the combined efforts on the quality of pedagogy is significant. The third variable that was discussed in the conclusion section was professional community. And professional community is centered on the sharing of teacher knowledge about practice rather than on decision making. The professional community is strong when teachers share ideas about instructional practice. They discuss those ideas as well as demonstrate how these ideas pertain to instructional practice. They do that amongst each other. The teachers develop a relationship amongst each other, which result in them depending more on one another, which means that they depend less on the principal for his or her expert ideas or knowledge. And when the teachers depend on one another, it diminishes the trust amongst them and their principal. The principal is only looked for to help when the professional community is weak. So even though principals are not needed when the professional community is strong, it does not suggest that principals are not important. It suggests that their work in schools may be one of a quiet support rather than bold, visibly transformational action. And overall, these findings create a clearer picture of teacher-principal and teacher-teacher interactions that support learning and bring us closer to the elusive goal of clarifying the link between leadership and learning.
Well, we hope that you have gained some knowledge from our PowerPoint. Again, this was how teachers experience principal leadership, the roles of professional community, trust, efficacy, and shared responsibility, which was written by Colin L. Wallstrom and Karen C. Shore Lewis. Thank you.